Hello, sisters. Welcome to the Sacred Medicine Podcast, weaving powerful, soulful practices into functional medicine. Step into this beautiful space of devotion and explore everything from nurturing foods, rituals, sexuality, and awakening your innate sensuality. It is time to own your radiance. This is the Sacred Medicine Podcast. Hello, and we are back for another week of the Sacred Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Margaret Romero, and this week we are talking about supplements that individuals, women with lupus, should really be considering taking. Now, when I first thought of this, I'm like, okay, 3 supplements. I think that people really love to have sort of like short lists of things that they can grasp rather than 20 of your top best supplements. I mean, that just sounds overwhelming. And who wants to take 20 supplements? You know what I mean? So I thought, well, okay, 3. And as I was thinking about this morning, narrowing it down to 3 is like almost impossible. So I'm going to actually add in an extra one to make it 4, because you know what? It's too hard to make it just 3. I mean, what was I even thinking? So let's start with the first one. Now, this is for individuals. I mean, you know what? These 4 can be for anyone. These are great for anybody. And so I just want to put that out there. But I also feel like it's really crucial for individuals with an autoimmune condition. I'm going to explain why for each one. But since I always talk about lupus, this is great for individuals with lupus or any sort of autoimmune condition. So this is why. So the first one, and I'm sure you've heard me say it a million times already, it's vitamin D3. And the reason why it's great for everybody. So for first and foremost, it helps to keep it helps you sort kind of like in the middle of the winter months when people are sick, they're sick, they're all around you, flu season, COVID now. It kind of keeps you well. It keeps your sort of like wellness stores high. And you want to be able, your body to sort of fight off things. But and this will be great obviously for individuals with autoimmunity. But what vitamin D3 also does is that it sort of modulates your immune system. It quiets it down. And, individuals, people who have autoimmune conditions, your immune system tends to be a little bit revved up more than the average person. So we want to be able to sort of calm it down. And that's what vitamin D3 does. Now, what dose should you start at? You can start anywhere between 2,000 and 5,000 IUs per day. I would say the typical primary care provider will probably say 1,000 is probably okay. But if you have an autoimmune condition, first of all, I do recommend getting your vitamin D3 checked in your next blood work. Make sure you get that. And the lab work is called 25-hydroxy vitamin D. And your levels with somebody who has an autoimmune condition, you want the level and, the result to be between 60 and 80. And so you may not necessarily achieve that with 1,000 per day, especially because most people are already vitamin D3 deficient. They really are. They're super deficient. And then the winter comes around, you don't really see the sun, and people get even more deficient. And then the last thing you want is to be deficient in a time or in a season when people get sick the most, which is late fall and winter. So it's the worst combination to be already deficient and then being around and more susceptible to colds and flus. So making sure that you're taking a good dose, which for me is between 2,000 and 5,000 IUs per day. Personally, I take 5,000 per day. My blood levels have only reached like 55, like honestly. So I don't go over that. Honestly, I don't do 10,000 per day. Though if I see someone that comes in and their vitamin D3 levels are less than 20 and they're in the teens or in the single digits, that's severe deficiency. And I may start them on something a little higher for maybe a month and then bring them back down again. But the key thing is to get it checked in the next time that you're there, just so you know how deficient you really are. So you can kind of gauge for yourself. I would say if you're in the teens or the 20s, or even anything, I'm sorry about the train. If you are, my goodness, single digits, you're beyond severe deficiency. So anywhere in the single digits to the teens and even into the 20s, you're really deficient. You really need to start at 5,000. If you're in the maybe 30s, 40s, then I would start at 2,000. If you're already at like 60, then I'd probably just, and you're not on vitamin D, I've never seen that before. But if that's you, then I would probably only do like 1,000 per day then. Okay, I hope that helps. All right, so the next one is magnesium. And this is another really common vitamin that most people are deficient in. And the reason why I picked magnesium is because it's sort of a calming hormone. It's a calming vitamin. It helps with muscle pain. It helps with sleep, depending on the type of magnesium you're taking. So let's say you also have some constipation and you either suffer through it or you're taking some over the counter, like you're forced to take laxatives, which being addicted to laxatives is not a good thing. It's really trying to find out what's going on in your gut and try to figure out why you have constipation to begin with. Like that's really where it begins, not like Band-Aids to get you through the day and having you have a bowel movement a few times a week. That's not sufficient. You should have 1 to 2 bowel movements per day. That's normal. If you are experiencing some constipation, then you would be taking magnesium citrate. And I'd say about 400 milligrams at bedtime. I probably wouldn't go more than like 600 to 800 milligrams per night. If you just want to sort of maintain and just bring up your magnesium levels to a therapeutic range, then you want to be able to get magnesium glycinate is a good one. And I would typically the dose there would be 1 to 200 milligrams per capsule. And so I would take probably at least 1 to 2 capsules per day. I don't know, about 400 milligrams I usually do it in the evening time. So that's a good dose. So I like the magnesium glycinate. But remember that the magnesium citrate will cause loose stool. You only want to take that if you have constipation or, issues with bowel movements. Okay. The next one is a probiotic. And the reason why I say this is because the majority, if not everyone that I know with an autoimmune condition has some form of GI issue. They've got either diarrhea, constipation, gas, bloating. They've got IBS. They have, they've got constipation and then diarrhea and the next day, and sort of kind of goes back and forth. And if you've ever seen a gastroenterologist, they've just given you the diagnosis of IBS, and maybe they put you on some kind of stool softener. If you've got constipation, maybe they've given you something to help stop the diarrhea. Personally, I don't handle GI issues like that. Not even close. I will get a very comprehensive stool test. I will see what is going on in your gut. And then if you've got parasites or worms, overgrowth of bacteria, then we deal with them. And typically the IBS symptoms will go away. The constipation will resolve. The diarrhea will go away. The gas and the bloating will resolve. So that is why I chose a probiotic, because the majority of individuals with autoimmunity will have dysbiosis, which means an imbalance in the flora in their gut. So a really good probiotic would be one that has at least 10 different strains of active culture, and including lactobacillus and bifido. And so you want to be able to take those in. One thing that you should be aware of too, something called FOS, when that's in the ingredients. So that is kind of like what we call a prebiotic, and it helps to feed the active culture, and sort of it helps the probiotic. And at times, a lot of people tend to get a lot of gas from it. So if you're having gassy issues, this could just make it worse. So I wouldn't choose an FOS. Just check the ingredients. I wouldn't choose that, because you would end up not wanting to take it. It would be a waste of money. So just don't choose one that has FOS if you're already having issues with gas and bloating. And then the last one is a B complex. And the reason why I chose this is because so many of you have issues with fatigue. And the majority of you are also really B vitamin deficient. Now, B vitamins is definitely something that I check in the lab work. And if you haven't had it checked, you should ask your primary or your specialist to check a B12, folate levels, to see what those are and to see where you are at with that. If you're vegan or vegetarian, at times your B12 levels can be very, very low because you're not consuming animal protein. And the B complex will help with the fatigue. It'll just kind of give you a little bit of a boost of energy. And so I really love B complex. I use a company called Integrative Therapeutics. And the supplement I use is called Active B complex, I believe. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. And I take one every day. I usually take it in the morning. You don't want to take it at night and then get revved up at night and, for it to interfere with your sleep. So that's the 4. So vitamin D3, the magnesium, and, we have a couple of different ones. Citrate, magnesium citrate if you have constipation. And if you don't, then the magnesium glycinate. Also, a really good probiotic. I really love Clear Labs with a K-L-A-I-R-E Labs. I love all their probiotics. They're really wonderful. It comes in powder and capsules. And then B complex to help with energy, because I feel like that's one of the things I hear the biggest complaints of is how tired you are, how much your muscles hurt and your joints, and the magnesium will help with the muscle pain that you have. And then probiotic, because so many of you also have just GI issues in general. So probiotic helps to kind of keep your flora balanced. And if you're on sort of a lot of antibiotics, a probiotic is really necessary for sure. And D3, because it's really great for autoimmune conditions, and it just helps to modulate it's an immune modulator. So it just helps to kind of keep your autoimmunity it calms it down. And I think being at a certain level between 60 and 80, when you get your labs done, definitely get that checked the next time you get labs done, just to kind of see where you need to start with supplementation, at what dose. And so I gave you a little bit of a snippet of sort of my thinking when it comes to D3 supplementation, but definitely get it checked. And after you've been on vitamin D3 for at least let's say between like 4 to 6 months, you want to check your level again and see if it's come up and if your body is responding to the D3. And if you're finding that it's really not and you take it every day, then it sounds like you most likely have some permeability issues in your gut, which means we also call it leaky gut syndrome. So if that's the case, that's something that I would recommend then getting a stool test. Okay, so that is it for today, for this week's podcast. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to send me an email. You can also DM me on Instagram, because that is the place where I really love to be. In case you are not following me there, my name on there is Margaret Romero. So Instagram.com/Margaret Romero. And talk to you all next week. Have a great fall season. It is here for us in New York and getting a little chillier, but enjoying it while the leaves are still turning right now. Have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for listening. Big hugs, and I'll talk to you all next week. Bye for now.